Hi everyone, welcome to the Furniture Fix. I'm Raina, and this week I'm going to be working on the bottom half of this hutch, and I've got a lot of work to do. As you can see, there's a lot of thick paint, a lot of scratches and some dings, and I'm going to completely change the look of this. As you can see, these don't even open. This opens, but it's super hard. It's got a nice little drawer in here with a really dirty felt bottom there. So I've got a lot of work to do on this one, but it all starts with cleaning it. I'm using a degreaser, the crud cutter. This one's gonna just cut through any polishes that have been placed on there, any dirt and grime. You always want to do this step because when you go to sand, you don't want to be grinding in all that dirt, all those furniture polishes, whatever was put on there. You just want to start with a clean slate. Now, if you're stripping this piece, you can skip this step because that stripper is going to take care of all of that for you. So now I'm going around and taking off all the staples that were left on there from when I removed the back. Removing the back is always a nice thing to do because it allows you to really get in the piece and get it all cleaned up or work on whatever you need to work on. And I also have to take the screws out of those fixed doors that don't even open. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all the screws. And then later I'll go up to the front and try to pry those off. So I definitely want to take this door off also. Just gonna need to get it off so that I can work on the panels that I'm going to be placing on there, which you'll see later on. Also, removing the doors helps you to work on the frame a lot easier than if you had the doors in the way. So now I'm going to try to remove these panels that are fixed to the piece. This got a little tricky. I ended up trying a bunch of different tools to pry it open because this sucker was glued on there. So I just went around with my razor blade and then just kind of tapped all around with this 5-in-1 tool, and it was a slow process, but it was worth it because I definitely didn't want to make too much damage on the frame since I did intend to have these open eventually. So they came off pretty clean. A little bit of damage that I had to fix, but just taking it slow was the right thing to do on this one. So now I'll go ahead and start sanding this with an 80 and moving on up to a 120 and then a 180. Now, I do have to warn you, I don't know what happened, but I ended up priming the piece after I was all done sanding it, but I did not record it. Sorry, guys. So here is the body, and you can see it's on its second primer now, and these are the last of the glazing putty spots that I have, and I'm just going to sand it down with some 220, getting that ready for paint. The insides are lined this way to protect it because I do plan on putting some really pretty liner down on there, and let's get to sanding. So whenever I'm sanding the glazing putty by Bondo, I like to hand sand it off versus using my orbital sander just because I like to have that control. When I use my orbital sander, sometimes it takes it all off and then I have to re-glaze it. And so to me, it's just a lot easier to go ahead and hand sand it with like a 220 grit, just something really fine, just to get that top layer off until it becomes one with the piece. And now I'm just going to go around and sand the whole piece with a 220 to get ready for the paint. And of course, here comes Supervisor Cosmo, making sure I'm getting this piece ready for paint the right way. Okay, I definitely don't want to forget to sand the frames to the doors. Now you'll notice the middles are hollow. I've got a nice little detail going in, which I'll show you guys in just a bit. Okay, so I am at the point where I need to nail gun the trim. Got my nail gun here. I've never used a nail gun on my own. My husband usually takes care of that, but he's not here right now, and I need to do this step so that I can move on to painting. So I was struggling on getting the trim just right, but I think I solved it using some glue, my level, and lots of this, tight bond. But I read the manual, figured it out, how to look up on the internet how to use it, but I'm ready. I've used one before, but I've never set it up myself. But I need to do that in order to move on to painting, which I'm hoping to do here soon. So here's the setup so far. And I will just go around and do the same while also putting in nails. So let's get to it. Okay, here we go. Gotta test this out on some scrap wood first. So probably need goggles, safety goggles. Safety first. Okay, what's going on here? Hmm. Hmm. Alright, maybe it's the way I'm holding it. Okay. Alright, it looks like I'll just keep going around and doing that until I'm done. Now that the trim is on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and fill that gap between the two pieces there with some Bondo wood filler. I'm going to round them out once it's dry so that it matches the top trim. Bondo is a two-part putty. You place the amount of putty you'd like to use on like a cardboard piece, and then you add a little bit of hardener just to activate it, and then you work quickly because it dries fast. Here I'm just going to be using some wood filler to fill in all those brad nail indentations. There's no need to use Bondo on this, it's just an easy wood fill because the little divots are so small. And I like to use a 220 grit to sand off the extra and make it nice and smooth. My plan here is to completely take this drawer apart so that I can get to the felt part on the bottom and completely remove it. But I also want to take it apart because I want to get all the sides sanded and get it prepped so that I can stain the front of the drawer. Well, I'm just gonna end up flipping this because I cannot get this black stuff off and I don't have an extra board, but I'll just clean this up as best as I can and I will just flip it to where this is gonna be the part with the liner. Problem solved. So I'm using a 180 grit sandpaper to go through the sides of the drawers just to make it smooth. Later on I'll be applying some beeswax to it. And then when it comes to the curved part of the drawer, you'll see that I'm going to be using a foam padded sanding disc just so that I don't flatten out those curves. So for the bottom of the drawer, this is going to end up being the inside of the drawer. So I'm just going around with some wood filler just to make all the little scratches and dents nice and smooth because I am going to be adding some contact paper. So I want everything to be nice and smooth so I don't have any lumps. Now I'm just going to add the rail back to the bottom with some CA glue and let that dry nice and hard. So guys, I did use the wood conditioner, but I didn't film it. Sorry about that. I started using this stain, but ultimately I didn't like how it dried. It was too light. So I went ahead and mixed up a darker stain along with this stain. Sorry, I don't remember the colors and I can't read the names on the can because they have so much stain all over them. But I did end up loving the color in the end from the two that I mixed. So that was a happy little accident. And it's okay to apply a stain or paint and not love it and to start over. Okay, so I'm going to be using these scar toe miter shears to cut the trim that I'm going to be putting around the door. Using the chop saw was just a little too dangerous. looking for me. So I tried doing it with a Japanese saw, but that was not working either. They weren't coming out super crisp. So now these will fit in here just perfectly, and then I'm going to be cutting the sides, but I've got my ends here, and then the rattan, or the caning is going to be right inside there, and this will be the trim right in front of it. So let's get to it. Guess the trick is just to do it. It's going to be wrong. Yeah. I'll be using the Heirloom Traditions all-in-one paint in the color Spruce. This paint is one of my favorite paints to use because it does have a built-in top coat and it does give a low luster matte finish, but you can always use a satin top coat, which I do a lot of the times because I like a little bit of sheen. So it's up to you, but this paint is great if you're doing a project and you don't want to have so many steps to do. So here I'm just going to go ahead and use an artist brush to paint on all the sides of the trim for my doors. So I am using the natural rattan cane webbing on the doors. That's the fun little detail that I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going to dry fit them before I paint my frames so that I don't get them scratched up, because this rattan is really scratchy. Make sure you leave a good inch on all sides, because once you wet it and it dries, it does shrink down a little bit. So the way I like to paint my doors is I hang them from a clothing rack. It's just a cheap little $8 Walmart special clothing rack. I drill these holes, I put the hooks on, and then I'll hang them by a wire on the rack, and it makes painting these so easy. The little holes are going to end up being at the bottom of the doors, and I will put some wood filler in there so you'll never even know that they were there. So it's time to prep my paint, and I like to give it a nice shake, give it a nice stir. I apply my pour spout because I don't like to waste paint and I don't like to make messes, so this is a great little contraption to put on there. It does take a little bit to fill your can this way, but it's worth not having to do all that cleanup. And of course, I always use a strainer because I don't want any chunks getting into my spray gun. That's going to ruin the piece if it splatters on there, and then I have to go back and sand it, and you don't want that. So just use a strainer and that will help with that issue. So I always recommend testing out your spray before you go ahead and spray on the pieces that you're working on, just to make sure you like the flow. And here I just went for it. I like the flow. The only thing that I would have done differently here is to put some wire on the bottom corners to make them stable, and then I would have just twisted the rack, but for some reason I didn't do that, which is weird because I usually do. And you'll see later why I'm talking about this. It was a particularly windy day today, so I had a little bit of a catastrophe happen later on. So for my second coat, I did end up anchoring the frame, and I'm doing one at a time. And if you noticed, there was some damage on the corners. There was a huge gust of wind that came through and knocked over part of the tent, and along with that was the frames that were drying in there. So it damaged a couple of the frames. I had to take time and fix that. I didn't film it, unfortunately, but I got them all square, and now I'm just going through and repainting them all. So back to the cane webbing, you got to let that soak for 30 to 45 minutes, and then you take a towel and kind of take off all the extra water that's in the rattan, and then you're able to work with it a little bit easier. It's a little more malleable. So working with it damp is ideal. It will shrink as it dries, and that's what's going to give it that nice tight look. This is the first time I'm working with cane webbing, so this is all new to me, and it's all trial and error, as you'll see in the next few minutes. It's a lot of stapling and taking the staples out and restapling, because what I'm trying to do is get that staple so close to the inside edge so that when I put my trim on, it's not going to show or create any unevenness in the trim. But this was one of the hardest details that I've ever had to work on. I would probably do it again. I did learn a lot from this, but it's all trial and error for sure. Having a power stapler would have made this job a lot easier. I have since bought myself one, but I did wish I had it for this project. There was also a different way that I could have applied the webbing. I could have applied it from the back. I was trying to avoid having to hide it somehow from the back, but looking back now, there's several ways that this could have been put on, but this is the way I chose. In the end, you'll see that it did work out really well, but it was just a lot of work to get it there. Just want to give a shout out to my baby hammer because I love using this hammer. I use it probably 98% of the time whenever I need a hammer when I'm working on the furniture. It's just this tiny little hammer that I think we bought for my son when he was little so that he could work alongside me whenever I was doing a project, but I absolutely love it. And now that I'm finished up with the cane webbing application, I'm gonna need my husband's help. Wherever you can hold it down while I go. Okay. I'm just gonna put them down. I'm gonna do them all around first.
I thought you were getting a little bit thicker piece, and then we could run along right there.
I didn't think about that. I just was excited that it was fitting right, like that it was the same kind of height. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about how it was gonna come together first. I just. Would it be easier to go in that way? Or not?
Well, your wrist blowing out because you're going to blow out this side. No, you need to go straight down.
Okay. All right. Should I start in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
There?
Hang on. Because the way the nail chiseling is going with the grain, I think you want to go against it.
Like this?
Try that, yeah. Because that's how I was nailing the other one. Yeah. There we go.
Is that deep enough?
Oh, that was like surface. I wonder if I hit some here.
Should we go a little harder?
Yeah. Try that.
like about here, I think, yeah?
Yep.
Now that the doors are done, it's time to add the contact paper to the drawer. So you just want to measure out the amount you need, and then you're going to take off the backing and place it in as best you can. And once you kind of get it in there, I usually like to press the middle down, and then I start smoothing it out. I'll use a little card to kind of get all the way to the edge and smooth out any wrinkles or bumps that there might be. And then you're just going to take a sharp razor and cut all the extra off the sides. And then to finish off the drawer, I'm going to add Howard's Feed-In Wax. So this wax is going to re-moisturize the wood. It's going to make it smell so nice. It's got a gentle smell to it, a little citrus smell there. And it's just going to make it look really, really good. Once you've applied it, you want to let it sit for a good 15-20 minutes before you wipe it back. And definitely don't forget the guides, because that's going to allow the drawer to slide in and out so smoothly. So I'm going in with the sprayer, same color, the Heirloom Traditions All-in-One paint in the color Spruce. The way I like to paint is I always start from the top of my project and work my way down. And then I'm also doing a 50% overlap each row that I do. I'm using the Wagner Flexio 5000 sprayer, and I really love it. It's really comfortable, easy to use, but you can use any sprayer that you have, or you can even use spray cans. For me, I do so many projects that using spray cans would be so expensive. So if you're going to be getting into furniture flipping or just doing lots of projects for yourself, definitely get a gun. And then I'm going in with a 220 grit sandpaper just to get rid of any dust that might have fallen on there or any little imperfections. This is going to be one of those steps you don't want to skip, because in the end you're going to get the smoothest finish if you do this in between each coat. Don't forget to wipe back all that sanding dust that you just created before you go in with your second coat. Also, don't forget to move your nozzle depending on the size of the project or the side that you're painting, or if you're moving to spindles or something thinner. It's okay to adjust your gun right in the middle of painting, because you don't want to waste paint. So if you've got the wide option and you should be on a cone, then you're just wasting paint. So definitely play around with that as you're working on your projects. So I'm satisfied with 2 coats for this project. I'm going to do my final sanding on the body of the cabinet. I'm actually using a brown paper bag. You can use a very fine grit like 400 or up if you would like. I've had really good luck doing this with the paper bag, so I'm gonna stick to that. I do have finer grits, but for some reason I really like how smooth the bag leaves the finish. And I'll just go and do the same to all the frames. Now, obviously, I did this before I put the rattan on, but I just wanted you to see the process of how the final sanding goes. I'm gonna go ahead and paint the wood panels on the sides. It might not seem like it's something that you should do, but I like the idea of when someone opens the cabinet door that they'll still see that pop of color in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that extra step. Of course, everything you do is totally and creatively up to you. And I like to give little surprises here and there whenever possible. Now I'm ready for the contact paper. So I'm going to remove this protective layer. Gonna measure out the contact paper that I need, cut it to size, and go ahead and stick it on. And then I'm just gonna smooth that out with a card. I use an old gift card, and you can smooth it out with whatever you have available. You just want to make sure that it's smooth and that you can get to the edges and really get all of those wrinkles out. And then that's it. Now, putting contact paper inside your cabinet or even inside your drawers isn't a necessary step, but I like to do it because the face that you see from your customers when they open up that door or the drawer and see that pop of color or that beautiful lining that's in there, they just love it. And you can really get a little bit of extra money if you're flipping because you've done that. People are willing to pay for that extra bit of uniqueness to your piece. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting out some blocks so that my legs will screw into them. These are going to go on the underside of the cabinet, which you will see in just a minute. They're not going to be visible from wherever your cabinet is. They're completely under the cabinet. So then I will go ahead and apply these, and then you'll see that I'll paint them just to give everything a cohesive look under there. Not that anyone's going to see it, but it's just something that I like to do. In addition to gluing them, I'll also be screwing them into the cabinet so that they're going to be nice and sturdy for when the legs go on. Okay, guys, so I just found out that I put these in wrong. I was supposed to put this in the wood by drilling a hole. Had I read the instructions to the legs, I would have got this right. That's okay. We can pivot. It came with this drill bit, so I will drill that in and just flip it around, and they'll be more secure that way. Now, they're okay like this, but I want to do it the way it was meant to. So that's what we're going to do. So now I'm going to work on the backboard to the cabinet. The original one was completely ruined with, I don't know what was in there. It looked like water damage, or it was not good, and it was not salvageable. So I am taking this piece that I already had in the garage, and I'm going to modify it to where it'll fit. There's going to be this little corner where it's kind of, you'll see right there, it's going to be kind of like Frankenstein, but no one's going to see that, and in the end it looked pretty good, so I'm happy with it. So here are the doors once I've put all the wood filler to fill in the little divots from all the brad nails and any other imperfections that needed to be fixed. And then I'll just go ahead and use an artist brush to paint those, because this paint has a matte finish. Doing these touch-ups isn't going to change the color at all. It's going to blend seamlessly. So that's the really good thing about matte finishes versus like a satin or even a semi gloss, is sometimes when you do those touch-ups, you can see where you touched up, but not with matte. Here I'm just going through and adding on the hinges to the doors, and then I will go and put the doors on the cabinet. And now I'm drilling the holes for my handles, which is one of my favorite parts. Seeing it all come together is the best. In addition to putting the hardware on at this point, I did put magnetic catches on the tops of where the doors close. I'm not sure what happened to that video, but just know that I did place those in so that the doors don't just open by themselves. So after putting the handles on and looking at it, I really don't like how yellow these are, and they don't match the caps either. So I found this spray paint, and I sprayed it on a pipe, so I'm sure that it'll look good with metal, and I really like this sheen a lot better. So I'm going to take the handles off again, because the gilded wax that I had originally put on these, because I didn't like these to begin with, it did not look good. So I stripped those off with mineral spirits and put these on, and I just don't love them. So we're going to spray paint them this satin gold, which is what I wanted in the first place. And I'll just do the caps just so everything matches real nice. And this matches pretty well, so that'll be okay with the hinges. That was the last step, and now we're ready for the before and after. I hope you enjoyed this week's furniture fix. It was a challenging one, but I'm glad you guys came along for the ride. Like and subscribe if you liked what you saw, and I can't wait to see you on next week's furniture fix.